This episode is brought to you by HASA. Liquid is clearly better. Liquid chlorine is the highest purity, works immediately, has no added cyanuric acid or calcium, and it will leave your pool safe, clean, and clear. And by the Bottom Feeder professional grade battery powered vacuum system. It sucks to clean pools, so cleaning pools sucks less. Get $100 off with code DVB100.
This episode is brought to you by Skimmer, the #1 pool service software in North America. With Skimmer, you can streamline your schedule, grow your revenue, and keep your customers coming back with 5-star service. Whether you're a one-person operation or an established team, Skimmer is your partner in success. Visit getskimmer.com/poolguy to try Skimmer for free for 30 days.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show.
Hi, welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. In this episode, I'm going to go over the smart pool water monitors. There's been a couple of new ones. Well, actually one new one in the last year or so. And then there's been an update to the Water Guru. So I thought I would kind of compare and contrast the different models that are out there right now, so that you get an idea if a smart water monitor is right for you or right for the customers on your pool route. Are you a pool service pro looking to take your business to the next level? Join the Pool Guy coaching program. Get expert advice, business tips, exclusive content, and get direct support from me. I'm a 35-year veteran in the industry. Whether you're starting out or scaling up, I've got the tools to help you succeed. Learn more at swimmingpoollearning.com. So the ones I'm going to cover in the podcast are the ones that are active and the ones that I've tested. That way you know that I'm going to be talking from experience and not just from, basically reviews online. There's two that I haven't tested yet. One is the ECO by IOPool. That's ECO. And the other one I haven't tested yet is the Ondilo ICO. Not sure if that's available in the US. It probably is available in the US, but it's maybe something that's newer. But the ones I'm going to go over are the Water Guru Sense S2, the Sutro Smart Monitor. Also going to cover the iPair Hydrocom, and that used to be called the Seagull. That used to be actually made by Seagull, but now APR makes it. So there may be some older units out there. And then the Crystal Water Monitor, which is the one that kind of sparked this podcast, because I did one on the Crystal Water Monitor itself, but I didn't really compare it to any of the other smart water monitors out there. So I think it's a good idea to kind of compare these now, since there are more of them on the market. Now, I think Fluidra was supposed to make one. I'm not sure what happened to theirs. I did get a test version of it like 3 or 4 years ago, but I don't think much came from it. That one was called the Blue Riot. I think you can still get this one. I'm trying to figure out if they have this one available, but it's not one that's in wide use, I don't think, because I don't see it anywhere out there. So I'm not sure if they actually have it available, but that's the one that they were working on. It was very similar to the Fin at the time. You may remember the Fin, or PHN Fin. I call it the Fin. And basically this was one of the first ones that came on the market that was in wide use. Now, the maker of the Fin is also the maker of the Crystal Water Monitor. Now, there was a gap in between. I think there was probably a non-compete they signed because they sold to Hayward, and Hayward kind of dropped the ball. And I think the reason why Hayward dropped the ball, and I'll reiterate this, is that these smart water monitors are designed to enhance pool care, but they're not designed to take the place of water testing, and they're not designed to take the place of the pool service professional. So one of the marketing things with Fin that Hayward kind of dropped the ball on, it was like, hey, get the Fin, replace your pool service. It doesn't work that way, because the Fin basically just did ORP and pH and temperature, and there's a lot more to water chemistry than those readings. Now, I mentioned that they enhance your pool care. The way they enhance the pool care is that you have these baseline readings that are going to be there, which I find to be really helpful. I've used a lot of these monitors over the years, and I find having those baseline readings are important, and they're easily accessible on your smartphone. And it just makes pool care much easier, and it makes it much more convenient. So again, there are some other test factors you're going to need a test for, but having these baseline like pH and ORP or if you have a different monitor, and I'll of course go over what each one does. Some will do free chlorine and pH, and one does even alkalinity, but there are a lot of readings that are missing at this point. You don't have your calcium hardness, you don't have your cyanuric acid, and of course there's one that does cyanuric acid as well also. So before I kind of get this too muddled, let me go over each smart monitor that I've tested and what they actually test for. The Sutro is kind of like the Ferrari of these testers. It's a little expensive, and the cost of the reagents are also a little expensive. So it's the most expensive one to operate, but it does do tests that are really important. It does pH, the free chlorine, your alkalinity, and the temperature. So it's the only one of these testers that does alkalinity currently. It does the free chlorine, but not the total chlorine. It does the pH and the temperature. And they use a reagent. I believe they're still using the Lamont reagents for their testers. Now, it's really nice because it does these test factors that are pretty common, and they're highly accurate in my testing. And the cons are, well, it also gives you chemical dosing also in the app. But of course, the cons are they're a subscription based. The reagents last for 30 days. And you have to keep getting that subscription, or keep the subscription to get the reagents sent to you. And this is a pretty good smart water monitor, don't get me wrong. Cost aside, it's really innovative, and the units last a long time. In my testing, I had one that lasted about 2 years before it kind of died. I'm not sure exactly what happened to it, but it does do a good job of testing those. And the app is really, really easy to read. You can get the readings right away. So I find the Sutro is not a bad smart water monitor. It's just that the cost is one of the things that's prohibitive to a lot of consumers. The next one that I really like is the Water Guru Sense. The Sense S2, which is their newest model, is better than their standard Sense model. I'm not sure if you can still get the first generation, but the second generation definitely has a lot more. It's more robust, and I really like the design of the Water Guru. It kind of replaces your Skimmer basket, and then the actual device is in the Skimmer. It uses kind of a test strip type cartridge in there. So in the cartridge are these reagents that are kind of like even like a test strip swab, you can say, but they're actually built into the cartridge. If you open one up, which I've done, it's like a tape in there, almost like an old cassette tape, basically, is what it kind of reminded me of, or an 8-track tape. And you have basically the reagents in there that kind of circle around. As you use them up, they're going to, of course, click over to the next one. So it's really an interesting design. And out of all these smart water monitors, it does do the most testing if you use the C5 cassette. Now, the Sense S2 takes two types of cassettes. The C2 cassette now. It used to be called the C1. That was with their first model. And that one does pH and free chlorine. But the C5 cassette, which may be a little bit overdone because you don't need these readings every day. So you would want to switch between the C2 and C5, I think would be logical. But the C5 cassette does 5 test factors. It does pH, free chlorine, cyanuric acid, total alkalinity, and total hardness. Not calcium hardness, but total hardness. There's a difference. That's calcium and magnesium, whereas calcium hardness is just calcium. Nice thing about the Water Guru, again, it replaces your Skimmer lid, and it doesn't really sit anywhere except the lid itself is the device, and then you have the sensor inside there, is that there's no subscription for it. So you buy the device, it's like $300 for it. You buy the device, and you have to just buy the cassettes that last 30 days each. And so if you wanted to buy the C5 cassettes, you would actually, it says the last 29 days. So 30 days, 29 days, pretty close, so a month. And if you wanted to buy 3 of the C5 cassettes, which does the pH and free chlorine daily plus cyanuric acid, total hardness and alkalinity, these are $69 currently right now for 3 of them. So that's a 3-month supply or 90 days worth for $69. Not terrible. If you think about how much it costs for test strip testing, it's actually pretty competitive. And again, it gives it directly to your phone. Now, you may not need all those readings every day, the cyanuric acid and the hardness and the alkalinity, but they're built in, And that's kind of what you're going to get when you get the C5 cassette with the Water Guru. They have a combo pack also, which doesn't make a lot of sense because you're paying the same amount of money for it, but they do offer it. If it was cheaper, it would be more logical, but it's not. But you get one C5 cassette, which does those 5 readings, and then you get 2 C2 cassettes, which just do pH and free chlorine, which is smart. I mean, it's a good way to break it up, but it would be smarter if this was like $49 because 2 of those cassettes only do 2 readings. So why not just get the C5 cassettes and do all 5 readings every day? It's just not a logical thing in my opinion, the way they market that, but you can do that as well. So I think it's a great tester, it's a great smart monitor, and it's accurate in my testing, and it's something that I would not have any problem recommending it. If you're looking for a smart water monitor and you want something that does these 5 test factors, which is again the most test factors of any of these devices, it does the pH, free chlorine, cyanuric acid, hardness, and total alkalinity. It's not a bad smart water monitor to get, and you can read the reviews of it, and most of the reviews are pretty positive. The newest one on the market, and the price is probably going to change with the tariffs, but currently I think it's like around $400, and I think the price is going to definitely go up because it's made in China. I'm not sure where the Water Guru is made. The price may increase as well. There may be price increases across all these devices, but that's something in the future to think about. But currently the APR Hydrocom is around $400, and it's designed with these replaceable probes that snap in, and currently it does temperature twice, which I think one is air temperature and one is the pool water temperature. According to the app, you get both the air temperature and the pool water temperature. So that may be why it does temperature twice, but it does pH and ORP. It also does total dissolved solids and conductivity. Those are usually the same sensor anyway, so I can see why it would do EC, and it would also do TDS. Now, total dissolved solids is a reading that is important in pool care, and I would have probably, if they were to ask me what would be the test factors that people in America would want, I would not tell them to make a TDS conductivity sensor. That to me is useless in a lot of cases for backyard pool owners. The TDS number is important, but you don't need that number all the time. I would have told them to make a salinity probe so that you can check the salt level in your pool. Now that may be coming down the pipe because there is one dummy sensor in there, or one dummy insert, so you can actually put something in there eventually in the future. So they're going to probably expand in the future. I would think logically it would have salinity. That would be the third probe that they would have in there that you can put in there. But maybe they'll have something different. There's really no digital probe that can do alkalinity as far as I know. There may be one, maybe they'll design one, but they're limited because these are just basically digital sensors or digital probes that are on the end of these inserts in their device. And so they're not a reagent like the Sutro, and they're not a test strip like the Water Guru. And so that's your limitation. The only other sensor I can think of would be salinity, so that's probably coming down in the future. So I'm going to say that this device currently does your pH and ORP, temperature of the air, temperature of the pool water. It does the total dissolved solids and EC, or conductivity of the pool, and maybe it's going to expand to salinity. It's a relatively new product, and the only reason why they made this product in the first place, the Hydrocom, was, and there's 2 different ones. There's the standard Hydrocom and there's a Hydrocom Pro. And the reason why they came out with this is that their cordless robotic pool cleaners are run off of an app. And if you know anything about Wi-Fi technology, once it's underwater, you can't communicate anymore. So the app was kind of useless. So the Hydrocom Pro was designed so that you would have continuous underwater communication with your cordless IPR robot. And so they probably just thought, well, if we're making this thing, we might as well add these probes and get the water readings as well. Not a bad idea. Someone actually came up with a better idea, and I thought this was probably the best idea, is the Solar Skimmers. IPR makes one as well. It's called the Surfer. I think they have a Surfer 2 now as well. Is put these probes inside the Surfer, and that way, while this thing is skimming the pool, you're getting your readings, your ORP and pH. I guess you would get TDS as well because that's one of the probes that they have. And this would be great. You would have the solar skimmer going in the pool and giving you the reading. Not a bad idea because the Hydrocom is just a device that floats in the pool and does nothing except float there. So if they incorporated this technology into the solar powered skimmers, you would get a 2-for-1 kind of product, which would be a better deal, I think, than just having this thing float in the pool. It has solar panels, so it's going to have continuous power. You can also plug it in if you need to, but I think you're very limited to your testing. And this device is pretty gigantic, in my opinion. It's like 5 times the size of a Sutro, so it's a pretty big device that sits in your pool. They probably could have made it smaller. I'm not sure why it's so big. And the top of it looks a lot like the Remington Solar Sunshock. So that's kind of like the diameter of the top. Then you have the bottom part of it as well. Maybe not 5 times the Sutro, maybe 3 times as big as a Sutro. Bit of an exaggeration there, but it's a pretty big device that floats in the pool. Last is the crystal water monitor. And I did a whole podcast on this. You can pull it up and I go into really good detail about it. But it does do ORP, pH, and temperature. But the interesting thing about it is that you can enter the readings off of a test strip and it'll give you recommendations based on that. So it is actually a complete water tester. You'll have the constant ORP and pH reading. ORP, if you're not familiar with it, is probably should have said this at the beginning. ORP is not the same as a free chlorine reading, but it does give you the measurement. It's the oxidation reduction potential. It measures how effective the sanitizer is in your pool. So, of course, a good ORP number, or the higher the ORP number, 650 to 750 millivolts, it measures in millivolts. I mentioned earlier that a lot of these use a sensor, like of course, the crystal water monitor and the APR Hydrocom, and this is an ORP sensor that will get that reading. So you can kind of see how effective the chlorine is in the pool. That's why I kind of like these things, because it doesn't really give you a free chlorine reading, but the ORP will give you indication of how the sanitizer is working. So a good ORP number will mean that the chlorine is pretty effective in the pool and working, so you can use the pool and swim and not have to worry about it. And it does do pH and temperature. But again, you can scan the test strip in, or you can enter the numbers or the values of the color on the test strip, and it'll give you the recommendation based on the color that you selected on the pad. And basically, if you use the Lamont test strips, it'll have the pad there on the phone, on the app, and you just kind of pick the colors, and it's pretty easy to do. And then it gives you recommendations based on that. It does dosage recommendation as well. So both the Sutro and the crystal water monitor will give you dosing recommendations based on the readings in the app. And I should mention that the Water Guru also does give you recommendations for dosing in the app itself. The only one that doesn't currently do that is the IPR Hydrocom. I'm sure they're going to update the app to have recommendations shortly. But the nice thing about the crystal water monitor, it also has an LSI calculator in there, so you can also calculate the LSI. I believe it's the only one currently that has the built-in LSI calculator, which is nice. You can use another app to calculate the LSI, like the Arenda app. So the Water Guru Sense will give you the numbers you can use for the calculate. Same with the Sutro, but it's not the same of having it right there in the app, which is really nice because you can scroll down and see the LSI in the crystal water monitor. They're the designers of the original fin, and they've kind of taken this to the next level with the way they have the app set up. And I really like the fact that you don't get a lot of false alerts saying that the water is unsafe to swim in. So if I were to choose between these particular smart water monitors, of course the Sutro is like the Ferrari. You're paying for a device that uses reagents, that gives you the free chlorine, pH, and alkalinity. The Water Guru is great because you have a cassette that does 5 readings, the most of all these testers. So that's a great choice. I would say the Water Guru Sense S2 is a great choice. And then you have the crystal water monitor, which I think is a pretty good choice. And I should mention you have to buy the device for about $450, and then there's a $99 a year subscription, which includes a full warranty of the device. So for the sensor, which the sensor probably would last about a year or two anyway, and then also the crystal water monitor base or device itself falls under that $99 a year warranty. So it's pretty good because it equals out to almost the same price as the Sense Water Guru sends us to when you buy the cassettes for it. You don't have a subscription there, but you have to buy the cassettes for it and pay for the device. So it's not something that's totally out of range. $450 plus $99 a year. The first year is free, by the way. That's included when you purchase it. So technically it's only $350 plus another $99 for that subscription the first year. So the price is pretty consistent across the board. I think the most expensive one for what you're getting is the iPair Hydrocom. You don't get a lot with it yet, but they're building it out. But if you have the iPair cordless robots, their new Seagull, the newest robotic pool cleaners will communicate or use the Hydrocom to communicate with your app. So it's not a bad purchase if you do have the robots already. And these devices do have their place out there in the market. I'm not going to lie to you. I like looking at my phone and seeing the pH and the ORP of my pool. With the Water Guru, I like being able to see the alkalinity, pH, and free chlorine in the pool, and the cyanuric acid, which I don't really need to see every day, but it's there. So these definitely will enhance your pool care, and I like them. I think they're great, but they're not going to replace, of course, testing. Although the crystal water monitor does allow you to test with a test strip, and you can input the data, which is great. And it doesn't really replace pool service. And I like the fact that most of these will give you the dosing, and that's something that you won't need an outside app for. So it's also a great thing that they include in this app, the dosing of your pool based on the readings that you get. If you're looking for other podcasts I've recorded, you can find those on my website, swimmingpoollearning.com. On the banner, click on the podcast icon. There'll be a drop-down menu of other podcasts I've done. And if you're interested in the coaching program that I offer, you can learn more at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. This episode is brought to you by HASA, providing products that deliver clean, healthy water for every aspect of everyday life. The bottom feeder battery-powered vacuum system, portable, powerful, and only weighs 12 pounds. And Skimmer. Get Skimmer, America's #1 pool service software. Podcast listeners can try Skimmer for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.